Welcome back to Klinga Games, and welcome back to my hardcore reverse Genlocke series. My reverse Genlocke series is a challenge I'm doing where I'm playing a hardcore Nuzlocke of every Pokemon game. But the catch is that any Pokemon line that enters the Hall of Fame is banned in all future games. For anyone unaware of what a Nuzlocke is a playstyle in Pokemon with self-imposed rules to increase the challenge. The main rules of a Nuzlocke are: one Pokemon can be caught from each area, if a Pokemon faints it is dead and must be permanently boxed or released, and finally all Pokemon must be nicknamed. For the hardcore rules, I cannot enter a gym battle over the level of the next gym leader's ace. For the Elite Four, I cannot enter the first battle over the Elite Four's ace. Leveling above the cap during the battles is allowed. No items in battle except for held items, and all battles must be played in set mode. I also play with the dupes and shiny clauses, so I can reroll encounters in any route until I find a new Pokemon, and I can catch any shinies I find, unless they are banned from a previous game. I'm also not making this an official rule, but I'm going to try my best not to use the generational gimmicks. So I'll be making an effort not to use any Z moves in any major battles. Unless I end up wiping too much, in which case I reserve the right to ignore this rule. These are the banned Pokemon so far. And these are the Pokemon banned in Moon. The ban list is starting to get very long. To keep the video reasonably short, I'll only mention Pokemon that make some kind of an impact. Now let's go ahead and get into the run. We start the run off by getting a FaceTime call from Professor Kukui, who ends up being an aggressively attractive man with a lab coat and no undershirt. He tells me all about the island nation of Alola and invites his tiny puppy to join the chat. I then get to pick my choice of faces and nickname my player Kling once again. Then he hangs up and we get a totally not ominous pan over to a magazine with a sterile white building. And we see a small blonde girl with a gym bag getting chased in a totally different building, before the gym bag decided it had enough and zoomed them out of there. Followed by my mom's Meowth running into my room to wake me up. I try to get back to bed, but apparently that's not an option right now. Oh well. I also am not allowed to get my bag from the box. Oh no, there's gonna be a lot of cutscenes, aren't there? I don't think a lot of cutscenes is enough to describe the amount of cutscenes. There are so many cutscenes in this game. We have to meet Kukui again. Then we have the kahunas explained to us. Then we can finally grab our bag and hat. We cannot forget the hat. Then we have to follow Kukui up the hill. I think now is a good time to bring up one of my major gripes with this game. Instead of making one long cutscene to show everything, this game keeps faking you out on having control. It lets you walk about 10 feet before starting another cutscene. It really just slows down the speed of the game. Whew, glad to get that off my chest for the first time. While I was talking, we stalked a girl up a hill and saved her Pokemon from some Spearow. Sort of. We cover our Pokemon before falling to our deaths. Sort of. Because Tapu Koko comes to save us. He also drops off our main character item. Thanks Tapu Koko. After that we head back to town just in time for the Kahuna Hala to show up. How very convenient. It's also convenient that he knows about Lily and her super secret Pokemon Nebby, so she can explain that Tapu Koko is a big fan of mine and he went out of his way to save me. And also Nebby, but mostly me. Hala is so impressed he decides to give me my starter Pokemon, because Kukui didn't feel like doing it earlier. Lazy professor. After being introduced to the starter Pokemon, I pick the grass starter Rowlet. But first we have to see if Rowlet chooses me. Good thing it does. I would hate to be the kid rejected by their starter. That would be awkward. After the mini cutscene, I nickname my Rowlet Albert, and he joins the team. Lily and Nebby congratulate me on choosing a starter. And Kukui gives me the Pokedex. It's a decent Pokedex. For now. I also get a passport and am told to introduce Albert to my mom. But yet again, as soon as I leave the area, I get another cutscene to introduce me to my rival, Hau. And I'm given the illusion of choice before I have to choose to battle him. Hau chooses to start a weak to mine, and Albert starts with a grass move, so we'll skip this battle. Even if the battle gave Hau chicken skin, he should really get that checked out. And I give my plot device to Hala to be made into a generational gimmick device. You know, after another cutscene. Before I can finally get home to start my second day. Kukui barges into my house again, which my mom suspiciously approves of. And I follow Kukui to the grass to skip a catching tutorial and find my first encounter. Which ends up being a Pick-a-Peck. For reasons that will become apparent, I think this is forced to be your first encounter of the game. Anyway, I catch the little bird and nickname it Peckster, and it joins the team. After training up my team a little bit, I head to the island battle area. I don't really know what to call it. For another battle with Hau. Lucky me. Here we go. Hau leads with his Pichu and I lead with Peckster, but I immediately switch to Albert on a charm. Albert stays in because Pichu isn't really a threat and knocks it out with 3 leafages, leading to Hau's Poplio, so I swap again into Peckster to reset my stats as Poplio hits a growl. A Peck does pitiful damage to Poplio, so I switch to Echoed Voice to do more damage, and it really gets the job done, taking out Poplio in 3 turns. Finishing the battle with Hau. I really rushed through that one, but it's not a difficult battle even with 2 flying types. After getting praised by Tapu Koko, Hala hands me the fully updated plot device, Z-Ring, which is a good reward, especially compared to the next reward of a long unskippable cutscene before the day ends. And then the next day starts with another long cutscene of my mom and Lily. Golly gee whiz, this game has a lot of cutscenes. We'll just skip to me heading to Kukui's lab to get rewarded with an unbearably long cutscene, and a Rotom from a Pokedex, to upgrade my Pokedex from normal functioning Pokedex to annoying talking Pokedex. Upgraded might not be the best word for this, but at least the bottom screen isn't plain black now. Also, Hal shows up. I don't think there's a reason for him to show up, but by golly does he show up. I then get told to start my island challenge, but that's a lie because I have to go to the trainer school first to battle 4 trainers. While everyone is talking about the trainer school, I'll go ahead and explain my Route 1 setup. For this run, I will not be breaking up Route 1 into multiple sections, so Pexter is my only Route 1 encounter. I beat the first 3 trainers pretty easily, but then I have to battle Rising Star Joseph. Joseph sends out his Grimer and I lead with Pexter. Pexter hits an Echoed Voice, but then Grimer hits a Pound and gets a first turn poison with its ability. Then Pexter's second Echoed Voice takes it into the yellow before Grimer's Bite takes it to the 1, letting poison kill Pexter. And I bring in Albert to finish it off. Albert does manage to finish the battle with 3 Pex. Grimer hits 2 pounds in the process, but neither gets the poison. So I win the fight, but I only have my starter left, with no encounters available. And I have to fight the teacher next, so I head to the 2nd floor to take on teacher Emily. Emily leads with her Magnemite, and I lead my only Pokemon, Albert. Albert tries his best, but 4 Thundershocks knocks him out, and we get our first wipe of the game. Which means it's time to start over from the beginning, so we'll skip most of the beginning of the game and just hit the high points. I still pick Rowlet, but this time I nickname him Rowlet Jr. My first encounter is also still a level 3 Pick-a-Peck, which I catch and nickname Pexter Jr. Like I said, I think it's hard-coded to be your first encounter. We still easily beat Hau in the first 3 trainers, so we'll skip ahead to Rising Star Joseph. Joseph still only has a Grimer and I lead with Pexter. This time I lead with Rock Smash as Grimer poisons Pexter with Poison Gas. A second Rock Smash does get the defense drop before a Bite and Poison take Pexter to 5 HP. So I swap into Albert, who takes a Bite before knocking Grimer into the red with Peck, and knocks out Grimer after taking another pound. So we've cleared the first major hurdle with no losses. That's improvement. But I have to face the run-ender herself, teacher Emily. Emily leads with Magnemite again, but this time I can lead with Pexter. Pexter outspeeds for a Rock Smash that gets the drop before immediately getting knocked out with Thundershock, leading to Albert, who does manage to take down Magnemite with 2 Leafages to get revenge, taking a light Thundershock in the process, leading to Emily's Meowth. Albert takes a Bite and responds with a Leafage, but Meowth's second Bite gets a flinch and really makes me sweat. And a second consecutive flinch makes this a very tight situation. But Albert hangs on with 1 HP on the next bite and hits an Overgrow Leafage to get the knockout. So we've beat our last run, but we only have 1 Pokemon again. Kukui then shows up with a very, let's say, interesting looking character who was introduced to us as Elima, the first captain of the game. Then he leaves and the entire school has a celebration for a random kid showing up to beat them all. Some real winners these people are. We then run into Hala, who makes me touch his bowl and then leaves. I feel uncomfortable. But on the bright side, we'd reach Howley City, where I can find my second encounter of the game. In a little bit at least, because first Hal makes me get the camera on my Pokedex. Then a stranger shows up and won't let me leave until I peek into a hole he found. I feel very uncomfortable. Now I get my encounter, and it's a Wingull, which could certainly be worse, and a Pokemon is a Pokemon, so I catch it and nickname her Mine, and Mine joins the team. After exploring the city a little bit, I run into Ilima at the marina. We greet the captain, but then get interrupted by 2 Team Skull Grunts. At this point, we all know how good Grunts are in battle, so I beat up his Pokemon and the Grunts run. Then I get challenged to another battle, this time by Ilima. So here we go. Ilima leads with Yungoos and I lead with Albert. Albert hits a Leafage before it goes for Leer. Then a second Leafage takes it above half before it hits a Tackle. A third Leafage just misses the KO before another Leer comes out, and then Ilima heals up his Weasel before Albert can knock it out. But a couple more Leafages takes Yungoos low before Yungoos knocks Albert into the yellow, before Albert finally knocks it out, leading to Ilima's ace, Smeargle. So I swap in Mine, but Smeargle hits a massive tackle to take Wingull to 10 HP, and outspeeds to kill Mine before it could attack, leading to my Albert, who doesn't stand a chance, falling to a single Ember, leading to our second wipe before the first trial. So we run it back yet again. Once again I pick Rowlet as my starter and nickname this one Albert III. Then I get a level 3 Pick-a-Peck as my encounter for the 3rd consecutive time. I catch it yet again and nickname it Pexter III. Hau is still a pushover and we beat Joseph again with no losses, so we'll skip ahead to teacher Emily. Emily again leads with Magnemite and I choose Pexter. Pexter gets a drop on Rock Smash again in this battle, but this time Pexter survives the Thunder Shock with 6 HP, letting it outspeed to knock out Magnemite with a second Rock Smash, leading to Emily's Meowth, so I swap in Albert on a light bite. They then trade leafages and bites, but Meowth doesn't get nearly as lucky this time, not getting any flinches, so Albert wins the battle and we clear Teacher Emily with no losses. And we can head to Howley City to get the third Pokemon for the first time in Pokemon Moon. This time we run into a Yungoos. I think I would prefer Wingull, but beggars can't be choosers. So I cast the little weasel and nickname him Ugly, and he joins the team. After clearing out the Skullgrunts again, it's time to take on our second run-ender, Captain Ilima. Ilima leads with Yungoos again, and I lead with Pexter this time. Pexter hits a Rock Smash to lower Yungoos' defense before Yungoos goes for Leer. And a second Rock Smash gets another defense drop, but only because Yungoos survived on a Sliver. And hits another Leer before I switch in Albert, who does not take a tackle well at all before knocking out Yungoos. I really expected a potion there. But Ilima brings out his Smeargle. Albert takes Nimber into the yellow before hitting a Leafage to take Smeargle under half. The battle is now winnable, but I can't risk a switch, so I let Albert get knocked out by Ember, so I can bring in Pexter for free. Pexter gets hit by a tackle to just above half before finally knocking out Smeargle with a Rock Smash. Definitely not an ideal battle, but we did manage to get the win this time and can move on, after I lay Albert in the dead box. We run into Hala and he makes me touch his bull again. I don't think this man should be in a position of power, but I do get to go to Route 2 where my encounter finds me and ends up being a Makuhita, potentially a great encounter. So I catch the small fat child and nickname her Thick, and she joins the team. I also get access to the Halloween Cemetery where I find another new encounter, which ends up being a great Pokemon in Ghastly. I will never pass up a Ghastly, so I catch it and nickname him Face, and he joins the team. While I run into Hal and do some shopping, I also want to mention an improvement I made. I put all the banned Pokemon from Bank into the game to add them to the Pokedex. That way if I run into a banned Pokemon, they'll have the caught symbol and I will know not to catch them. I'll try to do this when I can for the rest of the challenge. Anyway, it's time to start the first trial of the game in Verdant Cave. The challenge itself is easy enough, just knocking out Rattata, who are all 4 times weak to fighting, and beating up Team Skull. And Eradicate too. But it's very easy, so let's go ahead and get into the Totem battle against Totem Raticate. Now that's a big boy. Totem Raticate has its defenses increased, but all Thick has to do is take a tackle and one-shot it with a stab Brick Break. And that's our first challenge cleared. Go us! Ilima then shows up to do a dance to show us the Z-pose. These are very awkward and weird, so going forward, I'm going to skip them. On our way out of the tunnel, I run into an Alolan Rattata. We couldn't catch Pokemon during the trial, so this is my encounter for Verdant Cave, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I catch the rat and nickname her Fatty, and she joins the team. When we leave Verdant Cave, Ilima shows us the omnipotent power of a captain by opening a wooden gate. Since he gave us a couple more encounters, I will suppress my instincts to mock him here. Kukui also gives us a Z-move tutorial, but skip. Instead, let's head up to Route 3 to get our next encounter. The first Pokemon I run into is a Spearow, but that is banned for entering the Hall of Fame in Gold. So my real encounter for the area is Cutiefly, a personal favorite Pokemon of mine. So I can't pass this up. I catch the little bug and nickname him Flaps, and Flaps joins the team. I also get access to Melamela Meadow, where Lily let Nibby get lost again, and it's, once again, my job to go get it. In the meantime, I run into my encounter for the area, Petalil. It's definitely no Albert, but it's nice to see another grass type. I catch the little Sprout and nickname her Sprout, and she joins the team, replacing Ugly. I then abandon Lily and Nebby to train my new team members. While training, Pexter hits level 14 and we get our first evolution. Pexter evolves from a Pikipek to a Trumpbeak, which is a big improvement for the team. I then return to the meadow to save Nebby from some flowers and bring her back to Lily. Then Hal decides to fight me for no reason. Hal leads with Pikachu and I lead with Flaps. Pikachu plays nice before Flaps can hit a Struggle Bug to lower Pikachu's special attack. Then Pikachu's Electro Ball does about a third before another Struggle Bug. And Pikachu takes a third Struggle Bug into the red after taking Flaps into the yellow. And Pikachu switches to Quick Attack to let Flaps win. Weird decision by Hal there. Oh well. He brings in Poplio and I swap it to Face onto Disarming Voice. And Face gets a paralysis on Poplio with Lick before I swap into Sprout. Sprout then hits a Mega Drain to take Poplio below half, and hits a second to take Poplio down, only taking a Disarming Voice in the process. Good effort, Hal, but screw you for the ambush anyway. Then Kukui shows up to thank me for finding Lily and let us know that Hala is ready for us to challenge him. Convenient timing there. Oh well, putting the conveniences aside, it's time to take on our first grand trial of the run. So we go and meet the Kahuna with his weird bull complex, Hala, after he's done talking. Hala leads with Mankey and I lead with Pexter. Mankey focuses its energy and hits a massive critical hit on Karate Chop before falling to 2 Pecks. leading to Hala's Makihita, who hits a fake out on the first turn to flinch Pexter. Pexter is also not safe to stay in, so I swap in Face, who is immune to arm thrust. Hala then switches out to Crab Brawler as Face hits a Nightshade. I then try to swap to Flaps, but Crab Brawler hits a massive pursuit, killing Face before it could switch. But at least it gives Flaps a free switch, letting it hit a big Fairy Wind before Crab Brawler uses its Z Crystal to give Flaps an all-out pummeling, which does a grand total of 10 damage. Good work, Hala. Crab Brawler goes down on the next turn, bringing Makihita back in, who hits another fake out, but Flaps doesn't flinch thanks to its ability and hits a Fairy Wind for about a quarter. And Hala brings out his inner troll, hitting Sand Attack to annoy me instead of just letting me attack so we can finish the battle. And he uses a poison on his Makihita. Flaps then misses, so I decide I don't want to deal with accuracy, so I swap in Thick on an arm thrust. Thick then hits a fake out on Makihita and hits a Brick Break to finally bring the battle to an end. I already didn't respect Hala much, but Sand Attack strategies just locks that opinion in for me. Not cool, man. Not cool at all. Give me my crystal and get out of my face. After the battle, Hala gives me the ride pager and lets me ride Tauros around the map. So I guess I have a little respect for you. Then Elima shows up to comment on the fact I didn't use a Z move. That's actually a pretty cool little detail. Then Lily asks me to help her or something. I'm getting really tired of cutscenes. The first thing I do afterwards is lay Face to rest in the dead box and add Ugly back to the team. Then after exploring all the areas behind the rocks, I find a Munchlax on Route 1 with leftovers. I don't know what the general rule on this is for Nuzlocke, so I made it up as I went. I really wanted the leftovers, but I already used my Route 1 encounter. So I caught the Munchlax, then released it after taking the leftovers. Since I didn't keep the Munchlax as a usable Pokemon, I think this is fine. After that, I found the Seaward Cave and got my encounter, which ended up being a Zubat. Not a great Pokemon right now, but it evolves into a beast. So I catch the blind blue bat and nickname him Bathu. After I sufficiently explored the island, I meet up with everyone at the marina and we board a boat to the next island. I complain about the cutscenes in this game a lot, but I genuinely enjoy the scene of the boat. When we hit the land, we meet the kahuna Olivia and one of the captains, Mallow. When they leave, Kukui explains that there are 3 trials on the island, but right now all I care about is that I have some new encounters available to us. And on Route 4 I get a great encounter in Lillipup. Lillipup itself is a pretty average normal type, but its evolutions are really solid. So I catch Lillipup and nickname her Athena after my own pup, and Athena replaces Ugly on the team. After training up Athena a couple levels, it evolves into a Herdier, a great normal type, and even better, it has Intimidate. Can't complain about that. When I get to Paniola Town, I run into Hau again, and guess what? Hau wants to fight. Imagine that. Hau leads with Pikachu and I lead with Athena. I actually forgot my rule about using Z moves in important battles and KO Pikachu with a breakneck blitz. I was using Z moves to speed up training and muscle memory took over. Based on the damage from Electro Ball, Athena would have easily beat Pikachu, but that's still a dumb mistake. My bad. Hau then sent it as Brionne, and Athena whittles it down with bites while taking some light attacks. I then switch in Sprout on Hau's breakneck blitz, but Sprout survives it with over half health, letting it knock out Brionne with a couple Mega Drains, taking a Disarming Voice and a pound in the process. So yeah, dumb move on the Z move, but I don't think I was in any danger in the battle. Hau doesn't seem upset though, so I'm going to allow it. Up a little further north, I got my Paniola Ranch encounter, which ends up being a Mudbray. And even better, it's a Mudbray with stamina. Absolute score of an encounter, so I catch the donkey and nickname him Mudweiser. I promise it makes more sense later. Mudweiser joins the team and replaces Fatty. After training up Mudweiser, I continue north into Route 5 and get another new encounter, which ends up being a Fomantis. A very bad Pokemon right now, but at about 20 levels it becomes one of my favorites from Alola. So I catch the little thing and nickname him Pinky. Once again, this will make more sense later. Then I run into Hau and a mysterious kid who we learn is named Gladion. I have to make sure I keep my distance from Gladion or I'll cut myself on all his edge. Gladion leads with a Zubat and I lead with Pexter. Pexter is able to take out Zubat with 2 plucks, taking only a wing attack in return, leading to Gladion's ace, Type Null. Type Null has crazy stats for this early in the game and Pexter's Brick Break does almost no damage. So I swap into Athena to get an Intimidate down. But Athena's Bite also does nearly no damage, so I have Athena follow up with a couple Baby Doll Eyes to really limit Type Null's damage. And I swap again into Thick, who is able to flinch Type Null with Fake Out and finish the battle with a Stab Brick Break. Gladion doesn't take the loss very well and does his best impression of a JoJo pose. After he pouts a little while, some Skull Grunts show up, but Gladion makes them leave. He's not wrong about them not being able to beat me, so at least he's perceptive. With that taken care of, the only thing left to do is to take on the water trial in Brooklet Hill. The start of the trial is pretty simple, just taking out some single form Wishy-Washies. With Sprout on the team, I don't think it's possible to struggle at this point. So I take care of them and get ready to take down the totem Pokemon. I swim out to position and watch the shadows form under the water. and Wishy-Washy emerges from the water to start the battle. I lead Sprout into Wishy-Washy and set up Leech Seed turn 1 as Wishy-Washy growls. Sprout then puts Wishy-Washy to sleep after a single form Wishy-Washy is summoned, which I will call Wishy. Wishy uses Helping Hand on a sleeping partner as Sprout grows. Sprout then takes Wishy-Washy into the yellow with Mega Drain as Wishy keeps cheering. And Sprout knocks out Wishy-Washy before it even wakes up, letting Sprout also knock out Wishy with another Mega Drain, concluding a surprisingly easy second totem battle. I really thought Wishy-Washy's school form would be more challenging. Now give me my crystal and I'll be on my way. Oh, and thanks for the fishing rod. I'll put it to use immediately, fishing up a Goldeen in Brooklet Hill. I've never actually used a Goldeen in a playthrough, but hey, it's an encounter. I catch the Goldeen and nickname him Horndoll. After exploring a little bit, I run into a tiny girl and a giant horse, and some skull grunts. So me and Hapu is the tiny girl by the way, take care of the skull grunts with no issues. Hapu tells me about Battle Royale and then leaves. Good talk. I also see Gladion heading into the Battle Royale area. Kind of don't want to go anymore. Unfortunately, the game forces me to battle in at least one Battle Royale. I also meet a brand new character who has no relation to any previously introduced characters called the Royal. So I hop into a Royale with him, Gladion, and Hau. I'm forced to bring my lead Pokemon in the battle, so I bring Flaps against Type Null, Rockruff, and Brion. In the battle, I use the tried and true strategy of just attacking Hau's Pokemon and hoping it pays off. And would you believe it? It does. Flaps survives the battle. Good job, buddy. Gladion is then too edgy to make friends and leaves. I'm fine with that. Unfortunately, it's not only good news. I also run into Ace Trainer Jim and his Kadabra when exploring Volcano Park. I lead with Mudweiser, who survives a Psybeam before hitting a Bulldoze in response. But I am forced to swap, so I bring in Flaps, who cannot survive a Psybeam and immediately dies. Fortunately, Athena can come in and finish the battle. However, I lost a Pokemon that I was really looking forward to evolving. So I lay Flaps to rest in the dead box, and Horndoll joins to fill out the team. After training up Horndoll and the rest of the team, I take on my next trial in Wella Volcano Park. Kiawe makes me watch the Marowak dances and take part in some battles. The first battle against Marowak is pretty simple, however there is a small problem when I fight his hiker friend. His hiker friend has a Magmar and I lead with Mudweiser. I swap to Thick to try to conserve Mudweiser for the totem battle, but Thick gets trapped in Fire Spin on the switch. Then Thick gets burnt by Flame Body when I hit a Fake Out. Then Magmar hits Smokescreen and makes Thick miss a Brick Break. By the time Thick gets a hit in, it does pitiful damage, and Thick faints from the burn and Fire Spin damage. So I bring in Horndoll next, and it also gets trapped by Fire Spin, but it hits its first Water Pulse. Then there is no Smokescreen, so Horndoll also hits its second attack, finally finishing off the hiker. So I lost a Pokemon before even seeing the totem, and after the final dance, Totem Salazzle decides to get involved in the trial. Its special defense is raised at the start of the battle, and I lead Mudweiser. Salazzle hits a Torment, but Mudweiser goes for Bulldoze and immediately knocks out Salazzle, winning us a very weird trial. The actual trial part was easy, with a clean one-shot, but I lost a Pokemon to a random hiker's Magmar. Definitely weird, but definitely a win, so give me my crystal already. Kiawe is also a total bro and gives me access to Charizard, which is basically this game's fly replacement. When I get down the mountain, I lay Thick to rest in the dead box, and Bathu joins the team in his place. After a bit of training, Bathu hits level 22 and evolves into a Golbat. Not a perfect Pokemon, but a big upgrade over Zubat. On my way through Route 8, I randomly get stopped by Colress of all people. Why in the world is he here? Really weird choice of callback. His design is also a big downgrade. I also get a new encounter in Route 8, but it takes forever for me to find a non-duplicate Pokemon. Eventually, I run into a Fletchinder. I catch the bird and nickname him Gale. I didn't realize it was a male before I named him, but regardless, Gale joins the team. While training up the new team member, Fatty hits level 23 through EXP share, and Fatty evolves from a Rattata into a Raticate, for future reference. Once I'm done training the team up to the level cap, it's time to take on my next trial. This time it's Mallow's trial in Lush Jungle. The trial is pretty simple, just fighting some wild grass type Pokemon to gather ingredients, and this time I don't suffer any losses. So we'll skip ahead to Mallow cooking up the ingredients I gathered, with my help of course. And Totem Lurantis strikes. Lurantis starts the battle with a speed boost, and I lead Athena to get an Intimidate down. Then I hit a Baby Doll Eyes before Lurantis busts out a Power Herb Solar Blade to do nearly half, and then summon a Trumbeak to help out. So I have Athena hit another Baby Doll Eyes, this time into Trumbeak, as Lurantis absorbs sunlight and Trumbeak hits a Pluck. So I swap in Gale, hoping to get a Flame Body proc on either Pokemon, but instead it takes a Solar Blade and gets hit with Supersonic. Well, that's certainly annoying, so I swap in Athena for another Intimidate, and Athena takes limited damage on the swap. Gale swaps in again hoping for a Flame Body, but we don't get a proc as Trumbeak hits a Pluck. I then bring in Sprout to take a Solar Blade and Rock Blast from Trumbeak, which takes Sprout to just above half. And Athena comes in for yet another Intimidate, but gets taken down to only 4 HP from the double up. So it leaves the battle for the last time as Gale again refuses to activate Flame Body on yet another double up. Then I bring in Horndal, but I only really bring him in as an excuse to try for another Flame Body proc, which yet again doesn't work as Gale gets confused. So it's back into Sprout, who has to take a Solar Blade and a 5-hit Rock Blast. That definitely would have killed Gale. And I try to get another Flame Body proc, but Trumbeak decides to go for Rock Blast for no reason, and Gale barely survives 3 hits at only 1 HP, so Gale also swaps out for the last time as I bring in Pexter, who takes a little less than half on the switch. And Pexter roosts to get to near full HP. Pexter then hits a Flame Charge before taking an X-Scissor and dodging a Supersonic. Lurantis then decides to hit a massive crit to take Pexter below half before another Flame Charge raises its speed. Pexter roosts again and we find out Lurantis has Synthesis. I do not like that at all. Another roost and Pexter takes a late hit and dodges another Supersonic. Then a Pluck takes Lurantis just above half as it charges another Solar Blade and Trumbeak misses Supersonic. Another Pluck takes Lurantis into the red before Solar Blade and Supersonic hits, so I'm forced to risk confusion. But Pexter comes through to hit a final Pluck to knock out Lurantis, leaving only Trumbeak to battle. Pexter roosts and Trumbeak attacks to do minimal damage. Then I swap in Mudweiser as a Screech comes in to lower his defense. Then another Supersonic comes in and Mudweiser hits itself in confusion, so I swap in Horndal who takes a Pluck, before setting up Aqua Ring and dodges yet another Supersonic. But Trumbeak hits Supersonic again after Horndal hits a Water Pulse. I then swap Mudweiser in again as Trumbeak hits Screech again, and Trumbeak finally decides to stop trolling, going for Pluck and letting Mudweiser hit a double kick to take it low. But the troll is back as yet another Supersonic hits and Mudweiser hits itself in confusion again. So I bring in Pexter again as Trumbeak misses a Screech, letting Pexter finally finish the battle with a Pluck. Oh my god, that battle sucked. I would say in general the totem battles are easier than fighting a full gym leader team, but that Lurantis is definitely an exception, especially with his trolly little bird next to him. But it's behind me now and I have another crystal. Then Kukui shows up after the captains leave to let me know Olivia should be ready to battle now. Thanks bro. I forgot to record the beginning of Diglett's Cave, so we'll just skip ahead to the Akala outskirts and my next encounter, which ends up being a Nose Pass. Because of how weirdly rare it is in most games, I've never actually used one before. I catch the little magnet and nickname him Nosy. When I get to Coney Coney City, I see a Delibird fly through the street. This requires a cutscene for some reason. I go into the shop I saw and a Nose Pass gives me a note telling me Olivia is at the ruins. Then I run into a very eccentric man and some skull grunts. I take care of the grunts and apparently save a slowpoke, so that's nice. But a little later their direct supervisor comes to have a word with me. And that's the story of how I got in a fight with Plumeria. Plumeria leads with Golbat and I send out Mudweiser. Stamina, Protect, and Stamina make it an easy battle and Mudweiser takes it out with a couple stomps. Then Plumeria sends out her ace, Salandit. Mudweiser misses its first high horsepower, but the second one hits with no issues and we knock out Salandit. So all in all, it's a pretty easy battle, like most Skull battles, with the exception of their leader. Now that she's gone, I can head into the ruins and Lily shows up for some reason. But then Olivia also shows up for the grand trial. So it's time to take on the final trial of Akala Island and battle the rock-type specialist, Olivia. Game Freak must have been a little pent up when they animated her intro, if you know what I mean. Olivia leads with Nose Pass and I lead with Mudweiser. Mudweiser hits a high horsepower to take Nose Pass low before it hits a Rock Slide, letting Mudweiser protect to get full HP, and KO Nose Pass with a double kick, leading to Olivia's Bulldor. High horsepower takes Bulldor below half before it hits a light headbutt. Mudweiser then protects to get some more healing, but it misses its next high horsepower, letting Bulldor hit another headbutt. It doesn't do much damage, so we protect one more time before Mudweiser knocks it out with high horsepower, leading to Olivia's ace, Lycanroc, but the ugly AF Dusk version. So I have no qualms about knocking out immediately after it hits a bite, finishing the very easy grand trial and earning me another crystal. I'm sure Olivia can be challenging if you don't have a Mudbray, but I do. After the battle, Hal shows up to challenge Olivia next, and he lets me know we'll be heading to the Aether Foundation, who are the good guys I saved earlier. Definitely good guys. So I head over to the Grand Resort to catch up with and be introduced to Faba, the eccentric man from earlier. He offers to take me to the Aether Paradise before Hal shows up and wants to come too. Kukui doesn't want to come, which is understandable. Any organization with paradise is almost certainly a cult. When we get to the paradise, Faba pawns us off on a random lady named Wick, before taking the most dangerous elevator in the world. Seriously, the elevator just leaves an unguarded hole after it leaves. There's no way that thing is OSHA approved. But Wick doesn't care and makes us take the same elevator to the top floor to the conservation area, and she talks about conserving Corsola from Marini. But Corsola seems to be way more common, so maybe they should be conserving the rare Pokemon. Just a thought. Anyway, she leaves and tells me to find the president. I find her in the back area, and I am reassured that this woman is a good person. Definitely a good person. Totally a good person. If you ignore everything about her character design. While she's talking, the whole building shakes and a wormhole to another dimension opens up. And a totally unknown Pokemon comes out, so it's my responsibility as the strongest 11-year-old in the area to take it out. Its defense gets boosted as I send out Mudweiser to take it on. It hits a light Venoshock, but Mudweiser's high horsepower immediately takes it out in one shot. Pretty overrated threat to the universe if you ask me. And Lusamine decides to show off her creepiest smile. Totally a good person though, don't forget that. Wick then sees us off as we make our way to the next island for more trials, and as soon as we hit land, Hal wants to battle yet again. Ah shit, here we go again. And Hal has an Alolan Raichu now, which I lead Mudweiser into. Raichu does massive damage with Psychic, but Mudweiser hangs on and knocks out Raichu with a high horsepower, which is good because that thing could have swept my whole team. Hal then sends out his Brionne and I swap in Sprout on a Z move, which does over half even resisted. But Sprout survives it and a Bubble Beam to hit a Giga Drain to get over half health again, letting it continue to soak up Bubble Beams and get the KO with 2 more Giga Drains, leading to Hal's new Pokemon, Flareon. So I swap in Athena to get an Intimidate down before Athena falls below half to a Quick Attack and Fire Fang, hitting a soft crunch in the process, and I swap again into Horndoll, who takes a Fire Fang much better before responding with a Water Pulse and dodging the next Fang. I then set up Aqua Ring before another Fire Fang and getting a crit with Water Pulse, and a Confusion. Pretty damn clutch, Horndoll. Flareon then hits itself in Confusion before Horndoll finishes the battle with Water Pulse, finally justifying its position on the team. Then Hal runs off immediately after losing. Can't blame the guy. Also a brief note, Mudweiser reaches the level cap, so I take it off the team. But the Pokemon I put on the team doesn't actually do anything, so I'm not going to bother updating the overlay. I then catch my Maliar in Encounter, but it doesn't do anything during the run. It's only worth mentioning because catching it levels up Pexter, who evolves into Toucannon, which would be a much bigger deal if the next trial wasn't an electric type. Still worth mentioning. A little further into the garden, we run into Kukui and talk about the ultra wormhole we saw. Then he leaves, so I guess it's off to the observatory. But first, it's time to meet Professor Oak and Blackface. This is certainly one of the most questionable decisions in Game Freak history. Thankfully, he leaves, but I'm also forced to go to the library with Lily. The only notable things about this are we run into Hapu and meet Acerola. Definitely worth my time. So are Team Skullgrunts, which I run into at the bus stop. I like Team Skull more than most, but these guys are worthless. Bye. I finally make it to the peak of the mountain and Kukui explains his plans to create a new Pokemon League. Really cool, dude. Very cool, actually. Can I go now? Apparently not, because a tall, awkward man is blocking the door to the observatory. His name is Molayne, and apparently I have to battle him to continue. Molayne leads with Skarmory, and I lead with Sprout. Skarmory hits an Air Cutter for big damage as Sprout misses a Leech Seed. Then Sprout gets taken to the red before it manages to hit a second attempt. So I swap in Gale and a Metal Claw, which is almost healed by Leech Seed. Gale then sets up some workups while getting peppered with light attacks. After about 4, Gale hits a Flame Charge to finish off Skarmory, leading to Molayne's Metang, and even at plus 4, Flame Charge only does about half. But Metang's Pursuit only does a little damage and it gets burnt, so Molayne wastes a full heal before Gale knocks it out. And Molayne's Dugtrio comes out next, but this time a single Flame Charge is enough to knock it out and finish the battle. Not the toughest battle in the world when you have a Fire-type Pokemon with setup moves. And with him gone, I'm free to take on the next trial in the observatory. This trial is even simpler than the others. The captain summons a bunch of Pokemon to attack, and I don't even have to run around. I have to battle a Grubbin and 2 Charge Bugs before the Totem Pokemon, and neither are a challenge. The only real problem is that I can't heal between any battles, so my team is already a little worn down before I face the Totem Vikavolt. All of Vikavolt's stats are raised as I lead Sprout into the battle. The idea was to set up Leech Seed, but I underestimated Vikavolt's damage and Sprout dies immediately. And I bring in Athena right before Vikavolt summons a Charge Bug to help out, so I swap into Mudweiser on a Spark and a Thunder Wave. I then try to hit a high horsepower, but I forgot Vikavolt's ability is Levitate, and Charge Bug hits a Vice Grip to proc Stamina. Now I'm going to do something I normally don't do in major battles and skip ahead. Vikavolt and Charge Bug only have physical moves, and Mud Slap. So the battle is extremely long and boring affair of stamina boosts, leftover recovery, and protect. Accuracy is also lowered, so there are multiple turns where nothing happens. So instead, let's skip to the part where Mudweiser finally knocks out Vikavolt with a Stomp. Now that the main threat is gone and Mudweiser's accuracy is shot, I go ahead and swap in Athena for Intimidate. Then I use Baby Doll Eyes to weaken it even further, but Charge Bug gets a crit to take Athena low anyway. so I swap in Gale, who gets a flame body. Where was this when facing Lurantis? Oh well. Gale stays in and hits a flame charge, then gets paralyzed but is able to move through and finish the battle with another. Okay, so maybe totem battles are a little bit difficult. Without Mudweiser, I really don't know what I would have done there. So good job, buddy. As a reward, have an evolution into Mudstale. A big improvement to the team. Now Sophocles, give me my crystal so I can leave. Pretty please. Mullane also shows up to give me the Steelium Z as well. Dope, 2 for 1 sale. I also get the Royal's Wrestling Mask to give to Kukui. I can't imagine why he would need it, but I'm off. I lay Sprout to rest in the dead box and Pinky joins the team. After training him up some, I head to Mali Gardens to see Kukui taunting some Skull Grunts. Nothing to fear there, but then Guzma shows up behind them. Kukui and Guzma have a little argument about the traditions of Alola. Then Kukui decides that I should battle Guzma instead of him. Real easy to talk shit when you don't plan on fighting, but here we go. Guzma leads with Golisopod and I lead with Pinky, so I swap in Athena for Intimidate, but Guzma goes for Sword Stance to offset it immediately. And I swap again into Pexter as Guzma uses Sword Stance again. So I go for Beak Blast expecting the worst, but Golisopod misses its Razor Shell anyway, and gets taken below half after the attack, thankfully being forced to switch into Area Dose, which hits a soft Sucker Punch before falling to a single Beak Blast. And Golisopod comes back in to hit its Razor Shell this time, which does massive damage. Pexter would have definitely died if the first one hit, but it barely survives an unboosted attack and knocks out Golisopod, bringing the battle to an end. Really got my heart rate up for this one. Guzma understandably freaks the F out before leaving, and I get a Z Crystal for my dead starter before Acerola and Lily show up again. And then they also leave. Good cutscene, totally worth it. On my way through Route 12, I run into my encounter, which ends up being a Torkoal. It's unfortunately not Drought, but it's still a decent Pokemon, so I catch the tortoise and nickname her Smokes. I also get access to Blush Mountain and get another encounter, which ends up being an Elekid, who does evolve into one of my all-time favorites, then evolves into one of my all-time least favorites. Oh well. I catch it and nickname my new Elekid Bolt. When I reach Route 13, Hal runs up to me. Thankfully, he doesn't want to battle for once, but then Gladion shows up, who also doesn't want to battle. Then he leaves. Well, that was certainly uneventful. Okay, bye guys. Hal then stops me again in Tapu Valley to point out some construction going on. Cool, bud. Have fun with that. I also get another encounter, but it doesn't do anything. Funnily enough, the experience of a catch causes another evolution. This time, it's Athena evolving into Stoutland, one of my favorite normal-type Pokemon. Then I head to the Aether House, where me and Hal are forced to battle preschoolers. This is just dumb. Let's move on, please. Thankfully, Acerola shows up and lets us know that she's the captain for the next trial. Cool. Let's go then. Or let's battle Team Skullgrunt. That works too. Boring as usual. Bye. Alright, Acerola. Let's go now. While training up my team, I go in and find my encounter for Route 13, which ends up being a Wishy-Washy that I fished up. Thankfully, it stays in its single form, so it's easy enough to catch, so I nicknamed the little fish School. Horndoll also hits level 33 during training and it evolves from a Goldeen to a Sea King. Not the best Pokemon, but it does have its own appeal. But with a team fully leveled up to the cap, it's time to take on the 8th trial in the abandoned Superstore. The challenge of the trial is to take pictures of the Ghastly line and battling them. But I have a normal type Pokemon with Crunch, so none of the ghosts can really do anything to me. So we'll go ahead and skip to the Totem Pokemon, where I find a hidden room full of pictures of Pikachu, where I find the Totem Mimikyu to battle. Mimikyu gets all of its stats raised before the battle, and I lead Pexter to combat it. I thought, start the battle with a Beak Blast to burn Mimikyu when it hits Pexter. That part works, but Mimikyu has a Lumberry equipped to heal the burn and make my first turn nearly worthless. It also summons a Haunter to support it before I swap to Gale, hoping to get a Flame Bloody proc. But as usual, Gale doesn't want to help out, and gets 0 out of 3 chances before falling to a Shadow Claw. One last disappointment, I guess. So I bring in Athena on the free swap to get an Intimidate down. And I hit a Crunch on Mimikyu before Haunter misses Hypnosis, which gets the defense drop before Mimikyu mimics Crunch and Hypnosis misses again, letting Athena hit another Crunch to take Mimikyu below half. Then a Play Rough does solid damage and gets an attack drop, but Athena clutches up again, hitting another Crunch, getting a crit to take out Mimikyu. After that I bring in Horndoll, but Haunter hits its Hypnosis on the switch. We then waste a couple turns where I try to set up Aqua Ring and Haunter burns some Sucker Punch PP. Finally Horndoll wakes up and sets up Aqua Ring. A Waterfall then gets a clean KO without even needing a crit. Well done, Horndoll. I honestly didn't expect you to have that kind of damage, which means I've cleared another trial. So I meet Acerola outside the shop to get my crystal. The first thing I do after the trial is head to the closest PC to lay Gale to rest in the dead box. Good effort, buddy. Then I head back to the abandoned mart to get my encounter. Because I already caught a Ghastly and a Zubat in this game, and Klefki is banned from X, the only unique Pokemon I can find here is Mimikyu. So I catch my brand new Ghost. During the process, Pinky hits level 34 in the daytime, which means it is also time for another evolution, this time into Lurantis. Would be more fun with its hidden ability, but still good. Then I nickname my new Mimikyu Mimi, and she joins the team. And my team is fully evolved for the first time in the run. When I get back to the Aether house, Team Skull is blocking the entrance, and I have to fight the leader, Plumeria. Her Golbat falls to Athena, and Mudweiser takes down her Salazzle, so Plumeria isn't really a challenge. When she leaves, she tells me to head to Po Town, and we find out Skull took a Yungoos as a hostage. I hate to be that guy, but it's just a Yungoos. We can catch another literally anywhere else. But the little girl gives me a rare candy, so I guess I'll help out. So I head up to Po Town, and a very depressed looking man warns me about Team Skull. But there's really no point. There's only a single person in Skull who can battle, and that's Guzma. So let's just skip past the sea of grunts and head straight for him. So I head into his throne room to take him on and save a Yungoos too, I guess. Here we go. Guzma leads with Golisopod and I lead with Pexter. Pexter uses Beak Blast as Golisopod hits a Razor Shell. We get a burn on Golisopod, but it's basically meaningless because Golisopod goes down to 1 HP, leading to Guzma's Ariados, so I swap into Athena on a failed Sucker Punch. Ariados then hits a Fell Stinger as Athena works up, and hits a second Fell Stinger before taking a crit Retaliate to a sliver of health. But Ariados responds with its own crit and is able to kill Athena with another Fell Stinger. Well, that really sucks. Mimi is able to come in and finish the battle with a Shadow Sneak, but damn, I really love Stoutland. Screw you, Guzma, I should be the one freaking out right now. Before I leave, Yungoos goes free and I grab a Bugenium Z from Guzma's treasure chest. My other reward is a very long cutscene where I'm semi-properly introduced to Nanu. And Acerola shows up to take the Yungoos back to the Aether's house. Still can't believe I lost Athena to save a stupid weasel. I head to the nearest PC to lay Athena to rest in the dead box, and Fatty rejoins the team in her place. While I was training Fatty up to match the rest of the team, Bolt hits level 30 and gets to evolve, evolving from an Elekid to an Electabuzz. I can't trade, so it won't evolve any further. Thank God for that. Bathu also levels up and gets its own final evolution, evolving from a stupid blue Golbat to an awesome purple Crobat, just for future reference. I also traveled back to round 11 because I forgot to get an encounter from there. My encounter ended up being a Pancham, which I catch and nickname Bamburglar, but to be honest, I wanted Kamala. Once we get back to the Aether house, we find Hao freaking out. Then we see his memory somehow? Is Hao a psychic or an ogre? Weird stuff. Anyway, Lily was kidnapped. Then Gladion shows up angry about Lily being taken and decides to fight me. Gladion leads with his Golbat and I lead with Mudweiser. Acrobatics does some small damage, but Heavy Slam does over half, letting Mudweiser finish off Golbat with another. Then Gladion brings out his Sneasel, but all it does is give Mudweiser a stamina boost before falling to Double Kick, leading to Gladion's type Null, who hits a light Crush Call before taking just under half from Double Kick, and another Double Kick takes type Null low after it misses another Crush Claw. Then Mudweiser finishes it off with a third Double Kick after taking another light attack. That's all she wrote from Gladion. Pretty sad performance, all things considered. Gladion then decides we need to go to Aether Paradise to rescue Lily, but when we get to the docks, Nanu shows up and wants me to compete in his grand trial before we leave. But I still need to train, so I make everyone wait. After I get my team trained up to the level cap, I come back to take on Nanu. Thanks for waiting, everyone. I'm sure Lily's fine. Nanu leads with the Sableye and I lead with Pexter. Pexter charges a Beak Blast, but Sableye hits a Fake Out, flinching me but getting burnt in the process. So I swap in Fatty, but Nanu uses a full heal on Sableye like a cheater he is. And I swap again into Mudweiser as Sableye hits a Power Gem. Sableye then gets a special defense drop with a Shadow Ball before High Horsepower takes it into the yellow. And Nanu uses a Hyper Potion while Mudweiser protects. So I have Mudweiser protect again for healing before swapping Fatty in on a Shadow Ball. Fatty then uses Swords Dance before taking his Power Gem. But thanks to its ability Hustle, it misses a Crunch and takes another, before finally deciding to help and knocking out Sableye with a Crunch that hits. So Nanu brings in his Krokorok and I swap in Mudweiser on a Swagger. But I don't want to play that game, so I bring Pexter in to avoid the incoming Earthquake. Pexter then gets hit with a Swagger while charging its beak, but it hits through and knocks out Krokorok, leading to Nanu's Ace, Alolan Persian. And I swap in Mimi to avoid Fake Out. Mimi then takes no damage thanks to Disguise before hitting a Slash for pathetic damage. So I swap in Fatty again as Persian uses its Dark-type Z move, which Fatty resists but still barely survives. So I swap again into Mudweiser on a Power Gem that does small damage, and Mudweiser takes Persian below half with Double Kick after taking Dark Pulse. We protect to get some more health before running that same turn back, but Mudweiser just misses the knockout and is in dangerous position health-wise, so I have to swap, bringing in Horndal, but Horndal takes over half and is not safe to stay in. And I swap again into Pinky, who takes just under half from Dark Pulse. But I still decide to swap again and bring in Pexter, who gets taken just below half with another Dark Pulse. Based on my calculations, Pexter should survive another Dark Pulse, but I forgot that person has Power Gem, which immediately kills Pexter. That's my bad. Thankfully, Mimi can come in on the free swap and finish off Persian with a slash, but that was a very dumb death. In retrospect, Pinky could have stayed in and finished the battle off. That's frustrating, but thanks for the crystal, I guess. After that, Nanu leaves, Hal shows up, and we head on to the Aether Paradise again, but then I head back to the mainland immediately. I travel back to Mali City so I can lay Pexter to rest in the dead box. RIP buddy, I'll miss you. To fill the spot, I head to the Mali City outskirts to get my encounter, which ends up being a Grimer of the Alolan variant. So I catch the puddle of sludge, nickname him Drips, and add him to the team. During the process of training up my new team member, Bamburglar hits level 32, and I have Drips in my team so it evolves from a Pancham to a Pangoro. Good for her. On a slightly more important note, I get Drips to level 38 and it also gets to evolve, transforming from a pathetic little Grimer to a Muck. Cool beans. Okay, now I'm all ready to save Lily. Sorry for making you wait, Gladion. We hit up the elevator and run into Faba again, and would you believe that he's evil? I'm shocked! Shocked! Well, not that shocked. He's also really bad at battling, and when he loses, he lets us take the elevator to the basement. We then explore the basement and find absolutely nothing of value. I can't believe Gladion was wrong, can you? So we head back upstairs again and get ambushed on the elevator, but it's just a different breed of grunt and we beat them with no issues. Gladion then gives us a mini speech about how he might be seeing the value of friends. Good for him. Then Wick shows up again and reveals she's the only good person in the Aether Foundation. And also that Gladion was Lusamine's son, if anyone didn't already figure that out before now. And also that we were on the right floor the whole time. Good job, Gladion. Well, I guess it's time to fight more grunts. Happy days. We beat them without any issues. Then we have to fight Faba for the second time in 10 minutes. Really questionable game design here. He's also still really not good at battling, so we'll just skip past him. Then, 3 11-year-olds intimidate him into unlocking a door, keeping us out. Like, what are we gonna do? Anyway, now we have to get through a gauntlet of Skull Grunts to get to Guzma. Once again, the grunts are completely worthless, so we're gonna skip ahead to Guzma, since Gladion couldn't handle it himself. Imagine that, right? Guzma leads with Gliscopod and I lead with Mimi. Mimi and Gliscopod both set up swords dances on turn 1. Then Mimi outspeeds and hits a Shadow Claw to take Gliscopod below half to force it out. And bring in Guzma's Ariados, who hits a Shadow Sneak to break disguise while I swords dance again. Another Shadow Sneak takes Mimi just above half before a Shadow Claw takes out Ariados, so Guzma brings Gliscopod back in, but it immediately gets knocked out with another Shadow Claw. Masquerain is Guzma's next choice and it somehow outspeeds my Mimi and hits an Air Slash, which gets a flinch, so no sweet for Mimi I guess. So I swap in Drips, who takes just under half from the next Air Slash, and barely survives a Bug Buzz before eating its Aguav Berry and knocking out Masquerain with Rock Tomb, leading to Guzma's last Pokemon, Pinsir, so I swap in Mudweiser on an X-Scissor for a stamina boost. From that point on, it's just a matter of alternating Protect and Heavy Slam until the Pinsir is taken out. And 6 turns later, Pinsir goes down, bringing an end to Guzma and avenging the loss of my Athena. Seriously, screw you, Guzma. So I head inside to battle Lusamine to save Lily, but instead I get a long cutscene with a totally epic reveal that Lily is Lusamine's daughter. Shock and awe. Then Lusamine teleports away, so I follow her, into what can best be described as her serial killer lair. Except instead of people who look like an ex-boyfriend or something, she has frozen Pokemon all over the place. Then we get yet another super long cutscene. This game just can't help itself. Hal and Gladion show up, and Hal finally catches up with the rest of us and finds out that all the blondes are related. Lusamine then uses the Force, I guess, to pull Nebby's trap to herself and summon an Ultra Wormhole in the middle of the lair. And a Nihilego pops out. Then we get yet another super long cutscene of Ultra Beasts showing up all over the place, and getting ready to battle the Kahunas and the Guardians. Then Guzma shows up and announces that he's been working with Lusamine the whole time. Yeah, we figured that out before when I battled him. Then we can finally get the battle started against Lusamine. Lusamine leads with Clefable and I lead with Fatty. I assumed that was her ace for some reason, so I swap out into Drips as Clefable uses Cosmic Power. But Muck's Poison Jab still does nearly half as Clefable rolls Automatize from Metronome. Another Poison Jab takes Clefable to the red and gets a poison after a Moonblast. But Clefable has Magic Guard so it doesn't take damage, letting it hit a Leaf Storm before getting knocked out with Rock Tomb, leading to Milotic, so I swap out into Pinky as Milotic uses Safeguard. Milotic then uses the Big Brain play, hitting a full heal flail before getting O-Code by Leaf Blade. and Lusamine brings in her Mismagius, who hits a power gem before getting taken to a sliver by another Leaf Blade, letting Pinky survive another power gem and finishing off the ghost with Leech Life. Beware is the next choice for Lusamine, so I swap out Mimi on a Baby Doll Eyes. Mimi then uses Swords Dance as Beware goes for Baby Doll Eyes again, and Lusamine swaps in her Lilligant as Mimi goes for another Swords Dance. A Shadow Sneak does just over half before Lilligant hits a Stun Spore to paralyze Mimi, and a second Shadow Sneak finishes it off, bringing Beware out again. And here's the thing, Beware doesn't have any moves that actually hit Mimi, so it just keeps spamming Baby Doll Eyes. Since the outcome is a guarantee, we'll just skip to the end where Mimi knocks it out with Slash. This 1v1 lasted over 10 minutes, but eventually Beware and Lusamine went down, so Lusamine rage quits through the Ultra Wormhole and Guzma hops in after her. Then we find out Nebby has evolved into a Cosmoem. We also head up to Wick and somehow arrive at the conclusion that a legendary Pokemon will help us. Don't know where the logic came from, but sure, why not? We stay the night at the Aether Paradise, then get told that Lily is outside. Then we run outside and Lily acts like changing her clothes makes her a completely different person. She also calls it her Z-powered form and does a really cringy Z-pose. That's actually the reason this video took so long. I was hospitalized due to cringe overload. Then Gladion shows up and gives us a Master Ball and a plot device. Dude is just a vending machine for plot points. Hal also shows up to hit on Lily and the siblings vent about their family. But eventually I do get a ride to Pony Island, so I can deal with it, even if they go back to discussing family drama directly in front of me again. I know this is a touchy subject, but maybe a populated pier isn't the best place to go over it. Immediately when I'm given the freedom to move, I find a girl just handing out Aerodactyls. I did not remember this being a thing, but I will happily accept, and I nickname my new Aerodactyl Dactylator. Just a little further forward, I get yet another cutscene, this time featuring a man on a boat who climbs down and tells us that we need to talk to Hapu, and that she lives on the island. Definitely needed a cutscene for that. When we find Hapu, she comes out to compliment Lily's Z-powered form, and lets us know that Pony Island does not currently have a kahuna, but runs off to the ruins and tells us to follow her. Then an old lady decides to jump scare Lily for some reason, before giving me access to Machamp as a ride Pokemon. So cool I guess. Then Lily runs off. Before I follow them, I explore Ancient Pony Path and find a new encounter. And find a blue Gastrodon. I can't remember which is west and which is east, they're both Gastrodon so it doesn't matter. I catch Gastrodon and nickname her Bluey. Unfortunately, I immediately come face to face with Collector Raymond on the same route. Raymond leads with Turtonator and I lead with Mimi. Mimi goes for Swords Dance on turn 1, but Turtonator hits a Flamethrower and gets a burn. So I swap out into Horndoll, but Turtonator uses Shell Smash on the switch. Dude's playing 4D chess out here. He hits a couple body slams that take Horndoll down to 2 HP, but I manage to take it down with the Z-powered Waterfall, since this isn't a major battle. Then Raymond sends out a second Pokemon, Drampa, so I swap Horndoll out into Drips as it takes just under half from a Dragon Pulse. Drips then outspeeds to hit a Poison Jab for just under half as Drampa sets up Safeguard. Drips' next Poison Jab takes Drampa into the red, but it activates Drampa's Berserk, and then the Dragon Pulse gets a clean kill on Drips. Jeez, I barely even had a muck, this sucks. I should have just let Horndoll faint. Pinky comes in to finish off Drampa, but the damage is done. So I lay Drips to rest in the dead box, and Smokes joins the team in his place. When I finally get to the Ruins of Hope, I use my new Machamp to solve a very easy strength puzzle. I mean, look at this. It's too easy. I get to the Sanctuary just in time to see Hapu get a floating rock and become the kahuna. That must have been a very long ritual if it just ended. I then get yet another super long cutscene, but the general gist is that we need to find a second plot device from Executor Island before we can summon the legendary Pokemon. Oh good, how fun. So we head back to the Seafolk village to get help from the guy who was on top of a boat. Then I found out it wasn't even his boat. What kind of sociopath climbs on other people's boats? Weird dude. Anyway, we get to the top of the island and find the plot device, I mean the Moon Flute. Good for us. Then we fast travel back to Seafolk Village, and when we head north I run into an entire row of Skullgrunts, who apparently blame us for Guzma going missing or something. It's not really clear, but they want a battle. But Skullgrunts are still Skullgrunts, no matter how many there might be. After I take out the grunts, Plumeria shows up again. Thankfully, this time she doesn't want a battle, she just wants us to do what we can to save Guzma too. We were going to do that anyway, but I'll gladly accept Pazinium Z as a down payment. See you later. A little further north I run into Hapu who wants to do the Grand Trial now. I was not prepared for this. In all my notes I had Totem Como as the next fight because it has a lower cap, so I am forced to battle Hapu at a much lower level. Well, there's nothing I can do about that now, so it's time to take on the last Grand Trial. Hapu leads Dugtrio and I lead with Smokes. The plan was to Toxic the first Pokemon, but I can't do that to Dugtrio. Luckily, a single Flamethrower was able to take down Dugtrio after it sets up Sandstorm. Then Hapu brings out her ace, Mudsdale. I try to bait Hapu into wasting her Z move with a Protect, but Mudsdale just goes for an Earthquake. Then I try to hit Toxic, but Mudsdale instantly KOs Smokes with another Earthquake. Well, that sucks, so I bring in Pinky on the free swap and set up a Swords Dance. And Mudsdale's Heavy Slam does over half, but Pinky is able to outspeed and one-shot the Mudsdale with a Leaf Blade. Flygon comes in next, so I swap in Mimi to ignore the incoming Dragon Breath. An Earth Power breaks Mimi's disguise, and a critical hit Shadow Claw takes Flygon just below half. A second Earth Power does less than half, but Flygon survives the next Shadow Claw. Then Hapu decides to cheat and heal Flygon with a Hyper Potion before Mimi can hit a third. And Mimi gets hit down to 5 HP from another Earth Power and takes Flygon back to the yellow. So I swap into Fatty, who survives an Earth Power with over half. And Fatty survives another Earth Power to finish off Flygon with a Crunch. Out last, Hapu sends out Gastrodon. So I swap Fatty out into Horndoll, who easily tanks a Muddy Water. Horndoll then hits a Blizzard for very underwhelming damage, then gets hit by a Mud Ball, which takes it below half and gets an accuracy drop. But I stay in to hit a second underwhelming Blizzard, and Horndoll survives another Mud Ball at 5 HP. So I swap Pinky back in on another Mud Ball, and he easily survives. Plus no accuracy drop, so Pinky is able to outspeed and get another Leaf Blade KO, bringing an end to a very, very scary battle. This game was clearly not designed with a Nuzlocke in mind, but we managed to pull through anyway, so you better give me my crystal. Then Hapu gives us permission to head to the Altar of the Moon, and rides off on Mudsdale. I fly back to the nearest Poke Center so I can lay Smokes to rest in the dead box. Definitely the shortest tenure of the run. I add Bluey to the team in her place. I head back to Ancient Pony Canyon and get a mandatory pep talk from Lily before I can go in. Then she wastes her time healing my fully healthy team. This canyon is absolutely full of trainers, which makes it very hard to stay under the level cap. I avoid the ones I can, but I do get caught by some trainers and Pinky hits level 46, so I can't use it until the final trial is cleared. It goes to the box and Dactylator joins the team in the meantime. About halfway through the bridge, Lily decides to show off her Z-powered form again to, cross a bridge. Anyway, she gets attacked by Murkrow and Lily runs to the other side. Yay! Good work. Can we stop with the cutscenes now? On the next bridge, I run into the trial captain of Pony Island. She's totally tripping on something, so it's smart for her to get off the bridge. She also just gives me the Z Crystal. Definitely my favorite trial so far. Right at the end of the canyon, I run into the gauntlet of 3 unavoidable trainers. I managed to beat the first 2 with my almost full team, but after the second one, my entire team is pushing against the level cap, and I can't continue with them. So I fly back to the Seafolk village and swap out the A team for the B team. I bring in School, Bathu, Bamburglar, Bolt, and Nosy for the final battle. Thank God for EXP share, so training them near the level cap isn't too much of a hassle, and it's time to take on veteran Eric. Eric leads with Gramble and I lead with Dactylator. Dactylator takes to the skies to avoid Gramble's attack, then hits a fly to take it under half before Gramble roars Dactylator out. Nosy comes in and hits a power gem, but then also gets roared out by Gramble. School then comes in and transforms into its schooling form. Gramble hits a play rough to take School to around half before it gets knocked out by Aquatail. Eric brings in his Golem next. I try to go for another Aquatail, but Golem uses Explosion immediately and kills School. So I bring Dactylator back out, and Eric brings in his Cloyster. Dactylator hits a Rock Tomb for about a third before Aurora Beam does over half, so I swap in Nosy as Cloyster fails to protect. Another Aurora Beam does under half to Nosy before Power Gem takes Cloyster to a sliver. Cloyster then sets up spikes before Nosy knocks it out with a Discharge, and Eric brings out his final Pokemon, Gengar. So I swap Nosy out into Bamburglar as Gengar hits a Shadow Ball for about a third. Gengar hits another Shadow Ball to take Bamburglar low before she hits a Snarl to minimize damage. Snarl then gets disabled, so Bamburglar hits a Bullet Punch before barely surviving another Shadow Ball. Bamburglar hits another Bullet Punch, but Gengar barely hangs on and kills my Panda. Then Bathu comes in on the free swap to finish Gengar off with Bite. So we win the battle, but add 2 more deaths to the board. On the bright side, immediately following the battle, Nosy gets to evolve, transforming from a weird little magnet to a weird big magnet with a mustache. Hell of an upgrade. So I train Dactylator up 1 more level and get the A-team back together, mostly, and I head into the final trial zone, after getting a pep talk from Lily and reading a tablet from what must be 20 feet away. Damn good vision. The trial itself is to battle a Jangmo and Hakamo'o, but with Flying and Fairy type on the team, they were both one-shots. So I approach the final required crystal, and get ambushed by a totem Komo'o. Dang, that thing can jump. Komo'o gets all of its stats raised as I lead Mimi. Turn 1, Komo'o hits a flash cannon to break Mimi's disguise, and then Mimi hits a toxic to put the battle on a timer. Then Komo'o calls for help. Surprisingly, a Hakamo'o appears, even when I have a fairy type out. I then swap in Horndoll to resist the incoming flash cannon as Hakamo'o raises its speed. Next I bring in Mudweiser, who takes a ridiculous amount of damage from Sky Uppercut, then small damage from another. Mudweiser then protects to rack up some poison damage and get some health back. Mimi swaps back in next to avoid the incoming clanging scales and Sky Uppercut. Finally, Bluey swaps in to take one last flash cannon and Hakamo raises its speed again. And Mimi learns Play Rough in the process of leveling up. So to truly end the battle, Mimi comes back in, then watches Hakamo refuse to attack and knocks it out with the first ever Play Rough. And that is the final trial of the game. Good work everybody, now give me my crystal. First thing I do is to head back to Seafolk Village to swap Dactylator out and bring Pinky in. Welcome back buddy. After that I travel around the island to battle all the trainers I avoided earlier now that I have some levels to work with. Eventually I run out of trainers to battle, so I guess it's time to continue the plot. Lily and Hapu come out of the cave to join me as well. Lily I understand, she's been following me the whole time. Hapu doesn't make any sense. Last time I saw her she was riding her Mudweiser wannabe in the opposite direction. How did she arrive at the same time as Lily? Weird. Really weird. Anyway, let's play some flutes. Lily takes her position with the Sun Flute and I join her on the other side. Well, eventually. First I explore the entire area for hidden items. Very disappointing area if we're being honest. Perfect place for a Moonblast TM. Oh well, let's play some flutes. Moon Flute really does its job because it's night already. The sound of two 11-year-olds playing flutes for the first time opens the ancient Alolan laser beam. Yeah, that's actually what happens. It's a very weird scene. Nebby then tries to escape the terrible music and jumps into the laser beam. Unfortunately for Nebby, the beam makes it evolve instead, and Nebby emerges as a giant moonbat. Pretty cool honestly, I always liked Lunala's design. Lily then comes over to congratulate Nebby and ask it to save her mom with us. And Nebby does it. It must have really liked that duffel bag. Or it was just trying to kidnap us and take us into Ultra Space. I'll let you decide for yourself. Either way, we get to the Ultra Space and run into Guzma when we do. He's experiencing some major PTSD from having to hang around Nihilego so much. I can't really blame him, they're kinda creepy. Plus this world only has a single walkway and there's nothing to do. I think that's worse than the Nihilego personally. We also run into Lusamine at the end of the walkway. Her and Lily have an unbearably long conversation, so we'll just skip past that part to where Nihilego and Lusamine merge. I understand the instinct from Game Freak, but I always thought this was just dumb. Lusamine and Nihilego look more intimidating separately than they do combined. Let's just battle. Come on. Thank you. Lusamine leads with her Clefable and I lead with Pinky. Clefable starts the battle with a Cosmic Power and Pinky sets up as well with Swords Dance. Pinky then takes a Moonblast at just above half as it uses another Swords Dance. Clefable then uses Metronome and rolls a Tickle and lowers Pinky's attack, letting it survive the incoming Leaf Blade. Thankfully, Clefable then uses Moonlight to get some healing, but it's still in range for Pinky to knock it out with another blade. Lusamine sends in her Miss Magius next, so I swap into Fatty as Miss Magius uses Pain Split for no reason. Another Pain Split continues to do nothing before Fatty hits a Crunch to give the one-shot. Next up, Lusamine sends out her Beware, so I swap into Mimi to avoid the incoming takedown. Really? Takedown into Fatty? That's just bad battling. And Lusamine continues to prove she can't battle at all, hitting multiple Pain Splits that lower her own health, as Mimi sets up 3 Swords Dances. After the setup and Lusamine lowering her own Pokemon's HP, a single Play Rough knocks it out. So Lusamine brings out her Lilligant, but with Disguise still active, Mimi can just ignore the Petal Dance and knock Lilligant out with a Shadow Claw. And Lusamine is down to just her Milotic, so she brings it out and hits a Hydro Pump that takes Mimi low, but Mimi responds with another Shadow Claw for the KO. And that brings the end to Lusamine's plot to live with a bunch of parasites. Wait, was that really her plan? Gosh, that's stupid. Definitely the dumbest plan of the villain so far. I would even put Cyrus's plan above this, and that dude was an idiot. Lily, I certainly hope you didn't inherit your brains from your mom. That would definitely be unfortunate. Oh well, we make it out safely thanks to Nebby, and Lily decides that I should catch it. So I chuck my Master Ball, nickname it Nebby, and we call it a day on the plot of the game. So all that's left to do is take down the Elite Four. So I run down to Mount Lanakila to go challenge them, and instead I get greeted by Gladion for the last time. I guess I can humor him in battle. Gladion leads with Crobat and I lead with Mudweiser. I swap to Fatty on turn 1 and it takes Acrobatics just above half. Another Acrobatics takes Fatty to 5 HP before a Crit Crunch takes Crobat to what must be 1 HP. Thankfully, Fatty then hits a Sucker Punch to get the knockout, so Gladion sends out his Lucario and I swap back into Mudweiser on a weak Quick Attack. Mudweiser protects to get some recovery as Lucario goes for Aura Sphere. It then hits its next attempt and Mudweiser gets a clean KO with Earthquake, so Gladion sends out his ace Savali next. I expect it to be the normal type and go for Double Kick as Savali hits multi-attack, but it's actually a fire type so Double Kick doesn't do much. So Mudweiser takes another light attack then finishes off Savali with an Earthquake. Gladion sends out his last Pokemon, Weavile, so I have Mudweiser protect again to heal. After that she shrugs off a weak Ice Shard and knocks out Weavile with a Double Kick. Good effort, Gladion. Now please, leave me alone. Thanks. That's actually too harsh. I like Gladion, but still please leave me alone. Since we just had our final battle with Gladion, I think you can guess what happens next. Say it with me now. Final battle with Hau. That's right. Let's go ahead and get this over with. Hal leads with his Raichu and I lead with Bluey. Raichu hits a Psychic to take Bluey around half before Bluey responds with a Bulldoze to one-shot Raichu. Hal brings out his Kamala next, so I swap into Mudweiser, but Kamala hits a massive Woodhammer to take Mudweiser low, so I have Mudweiser Protect to get some recovery. Then I swap out into Pinky, who takes the next Woodhammer much better. Pinky then takes a Sucker Punch to below half before barely missing the KO with Leaf Blade, and a second Sucker Punch takes Pinky to the red before it finishes Kamala with Leech Life. Flareon comes in next for Hal, so I swap Pinky out into Horndoll on a pretty nasty Flare Blitz. Horndoll then gets outsped and brought to the red before knocking out Flareon with a Waterfall, leading to Hal's ace Primarina, so I swap again and bring Mimi in on a Moonblast that breaks Disguise. Mimi then outspeeds to do a quarter with Shadow Claw but gets taken to 40 HP after another Moonblast. So I have to make a sacrifice and swap in Bluey on the next Moonblast, which immediately kills it. To avenge Bluey, I bring Fatty in next, who outspeeds and finishes off Primarina with a Double Edge that thankfully doesn't miss. So Hal finished his final battle having killed one of my Pokemon. First time since Platinum that's happened. Honestly, kudos to Hal there, he's got a tough team. I head to the nearest PC, lay Bluey to rest in the dead box, and add Nosy to the team in his place. So after a little bit of training, I have the team ready to be the first league challenger in the history of Alola. I feel confident about this team, it has some real powerhouses on it. Namely Mudweiser, who has carried this run on its back, and Mimi, who just has amazing typing and solid stats. We also have multiple setup Pokemon to snowball games, so we head into the league and get greeted by Kukui, who explains the Elite Four to us. Which is weird considering it's exactly like every game since White. Regardless, it's time to get the Elite Four gauntlet started, and I choose to begin with the flying type Master of Alola, Kahili. I do appreciate her being a former Island Trial champion, and you can find her childhood home on the first island, but that's not important right now. Kahili leads with her Skarmory, and I lead with Nosy, the new member. Skarmory hits a Steel Wing for about a quarter, and Nosy takes it under half with Discharge. Then Skarmory sets up Spikes as Nosy finishes it with another Discharge. Next, Kahili sends out her Mandibuzz. I have Nosy stay in and go for Power Gem as Mandibuzz surprises me with Bone Rush. Thank the Lord it only hits twice and Nosy survives the turn. So I swap out onto Mimi, who has his disguise broken and some small damage from another Bone Rush. Mimi then outspeeds to just barely miss the KO with Play Rough before Mandibuzz confuses her with Flatter. So I swap again and bring in Horndoll as Kahili heals Mandibuzz with a full restore. Horndoll outspeeds and gets a Waterfall, which gets the flinch, and then gets another flinch in the next turn with another Waterfall, but it fails to get a third in a row and gets confused by Flatter after taking Mandibuzz into the yellow. I decide to risk the confusion, but it doesn't pay off as Horndoll hits itself in confusion before tanking a Brave Bird into the yellow. But Horndoll snaps out the next turn and manages to get the knockout with a final Waterfall. So Kahili sends out her ace Toucannon next, and I swap out into Mimi, and it goes for its Z move and hits a massive Supersonic Sky Strike, which Mimi manages to hang on with Friendship. Kind of a broken mechanic, but I will certainly take it. So I swap out Mimi into Nosy, who manages to survive a Beak Blast and Spikes damage. Then I take advantage of Beak Blast priority and get back to full health with Rest. But based on the damage, Nosy would have barely survived anyway. We then have to waste a few turns sleeping, but the Beak Blast spam proves that Toucannon has nothing better to hit Nosy with. So we eventually wake up and Nosy gets a clutch KO with a critical Power Gem, but Nosy really wasn't that threatened. Oricorio comes in next for Kahili and it confuses Nosy with Teeter Dance. But Nosy hits through the confusion and gets a one-shot with another Power Gem. So Kahili brings out her last Pokemon, Crobat. I try to rest up, but Nosy hits itself in confusion after an Air Slash. Then Crobat gets a flinch on the next turn with another Air Slash. Luckily, Nosy does manage to avoid flinch and confusion on the next turn to rest up. With that, we're in no risk at all. We can safely wait out the sleep turns and hit a Power Gem to take Crobat into the red. Then finish off Crobat with a Discharge. So we managed to take out the first Elite Four member with no losses, but I will admit I didn't play great, and we could have easily had 2 losses if we didn't get a 2-hit Bone Rush or Friendship Survival. So let's just move on and pretend that was a perfect battle, for my sake. Let's try to bounce back from that less than stellar performance. I think battling a more familiar opponent should help us get back on track, so let's take on the rock specialist Olivia. Thankfully, her introduction is a lot less provocative this time. Olivia leads with her Relicanth and I lead with Horndoll. Relicanth hits a Yawn before Horndoll responds with a Waterfall. To avoid sleep, I swap into Pinky as Relicanth hits an Ancient Power. Relicanth then hits another Yawn before Pinky can hit a Leaf Blade to take it down. So Olivia brings out her Golem next and I swap in Mudweiser on a light Steamroller. Golem outspeeds with another Steamroller before Mudweiser hits an Earthquake to take Golem to Sturdy. Olivia then heals up Golem with a full restore and Mudweiser gets some chip damage with Double Kick, and I protect to get some healing, before Mudweiser takes a final Steamroller and finishes Golem with another Earthquake. Next, Olivia sends out her Carbink. Carbink outspeeds the setup Reflect, letting it survive Mudweiser's Heavy Slam. Then Carbink hits a late Moonblast before falling to Mudweiser's next Heavy Slam. and Olivia follows it up with her Probopass. Probopass sets up Sandstorm, for some reason, letting Mudweiser hit double kick for free. Then another Protect lets Mudweiser get back to full HP, and it takes a soft Earth Power before knocking out Probopass with Earthquake. So Olivia is down to her ace, Lycanroc, just as Reflect expires. Mudweiser then protects to get some more healing before Lycanroc hits a soft Rock Climb, and a follow-up Earthquake takes Lycanroc into the red. Sandstorm then ends before Olivia heals up Lycanroc and Mudweiser hits a double kick for some chip, so that the next Earthquake can finish the job, and Mudweiser outspeeds for some reason. I still can't really figure out why that happened, but hey, I'll take it. Bringing an end to the Elite Four battle with a genuine no-loss performance, Olivia really hasn't improved from her first battle. Oh well, not my problem. Down to 2 Elite Four members to go, so how would we go with Acerola and her Ghost team next? Seems like the member we'd have better luck with if you ask me. So here we go, Acerola leads with her Sableye and I lead with Fatty. Sableye leads with a Fake Out, because of course it does, but Fatty responds immediately with a Crit Crunch for the knockout. So Acerola brings out her Frostlass next to outspeeds for a Confuse Ray. And we see the other side of Hustle as Fatty misses its next crunch. We also see the Confusion work out as Fatty hits itself in Confusion before tanking a Blizzard. But the third turn, Fatty gets to attack and knocks out Frostlass with a Sucker Punch. And Acerola sends out her Delmise next, which doesn't stick around as Fatty hits through Confusion and knocks it out with Crunch. So Acerola sends out her ace, Palossand, as I swap in Pinky on an Earth Power. And Pinky hits a Leaf Blade to take Palossand into the red before it sets up an Iron Defense. Acerola then heals up Palossand with a full restore and another Leaf Blade takes it to just above half. A third Leaf Blade takes Palossand into the red before Pinky falls into the yellow from Shadow Ball. Pinky then gets faked out again as another full restore heals Palossand and it gets taken above half again. Next I bring in Fatty as Palossand attempts a Z move, but Fatty just ignores it. And Fatty hits a Crunch to take Palossand to the red, but gets killed in response by an Earth Power. RIP Fatty. So Pinky comes back out and gets to finish off Palossand with another Leaf Blade, leading to Acerola's last Pokemon, Drifblim, and I swap out a Nosy as Drifblim sets up Amnesia. We then trade a Discharge for an Ominous Wind, neither doing much damage. Drifblim then sets up a Focus Energy before Nosy hits another Discharge. Next, Drifblim sets up another Amnesia before it shrugs off Discharge again. The next Discharge actually does get the Paralysis after another Ominous Wind, but Acerola also apparently has full heals. That's annoying, but not actually a problem. A couple Power Gems do a little bit of damage, and Drifblim gets a crit with its third Ominous Wind. Then Drifblim gets some more luck and gets an Omni Boost before Nosy rests to heal up. Drifblim's final Ominous Wind gets a crit while Nosy sleeps, but with that, Drifblim is out of attacking moves, so Nosy is safe to wait out its sleep turns before finishing off Drifblim with a final Power Gem. Well, that battle didn't exactly go the way I wanted it to. Losing Fatty is certainly not ideal, but I didn't exactly plan to have him in the champion battle, so I think we'll live just fine. Good battle, Acerola. Would have been better if you didn't use so many healing items, but I think I'll get over it. I don't have a choice with more battles to go. So let's go ahead and take care of one of those battles now. It's time to take care of our rematch with Hala, the first Kahuna we fought. I saved him for last because my team had 2 quadruple fighting weaknesses, but now it only has 1, so I have nothing to fear. Hala leads with his Hariyama and I lead with Mimi. Mimi sets up Swords Dance as Hariyama hits a knockoff to break Disguise and remove the spell tag. Then Hariyama goes for Fake Out for some reason before getting knocked out with Play Rough. Next, Hala sends out his Ace, Crapominable, one of my least favorite Pokemon, so Mimi takes care of it for me with another Play Rough. Next up on the choppy block is Poliwrath, and it gets the same treatment, 1 hit, 1 kill with Play Rough. Fourth up is Hala's Primeape, which outspeeds to hit a Pursuit for light damage, then gets lucky as Mimi misses its Play Rough. Then Primeape hits a Punishment to take Mimi to 48 HP before getting knocked out as well with Play Rough. Finally, Hala brings out his last Pokemon, Beware, which actually survives a Play Rough at just below half, but gets an attack drop that may have saved Mimi's life, because Brutal Swing takes it to just 15 HP. So I swap in Mudweiser on Brutal Swing to avoid risking a Play Rough miss. And Mudweiser is able to tank a Hammer-On before finishing Beware with an Earthquake. After running the numbers, Mimi could have survived a Brutal Swing if it didn't get the attack drop on Beware, but it would have been extremely close, so it feels good to get lucky sometimes. Although it would have been just fine if we didn't miss Play Rough earlier, so we'll call it a wash. But with that, we become the first person in Alola history to beat the Elite Four. Good for us. I distribute the rare candies I found throughout the region. And it's time to climb our victory stairs, not a great reward by the way, and sit in the champion's throne. Briefly anyway, because Kukui climbs the stairs right after us and challenges us. I guess it's only fair that we need a champion fight before we can really claim the crown. But I don't think Kukui actually beat the Elite Four. Kukui leads with Lycanroc and I lead with Mimi. Lycanroc misses its Edge on turn 1 as Mimi sets up a Swords Dance. Then it sets up Stealth Rock as Mimi one-shots it with Shadow Claw. Next, Kukui sends out his Magnezone, which gets taken under half with Shadow Claw before hitting a Thunder Wave, and breaks the disguise with a Flash Cannon before Mimi breaks through Paralysis to get the knockout. Better than breaks through actually, heals its own Paralysis before Braviary comes in next. So Mimi hits a Play Rough to take it into the red as Braviary sets up Tailwind. Mimi then hits a Slash after Kukui heals Braviary with a Full Restore. Then Mimi outspeeds in Tailwind to finish off Braviary with another Play Rough. Fourth up, Kukui brings out a Snorlax, but Mimi misses its next Play Rough before surviving a Heavy Slam at 48 HP. But her follow-up Play Rough doesn't finish off Snorlax and Mimi gets killed with a high horsepower. A real shame to lose Mimi there, but I bring in Mudweiser to avenge her, which she does, outspeeding to get the knockout with Earthquake. And Kukui brings out his Alolan Ninetales next, which sets up Safeguard for God knows why before it gets one-shot with Heavy Slam. So Kukui is down to his ace Incineroar, also known as the ugliest starter in history. Kukui uses its Z move to take Mudweiser to 55 HP with an Infernal Overdrive, before she can respond with an Earthquake to take Incineroar to the red. Kukui then uses a Full Restore to heal Incineroar, and Mudweiser takes it to the red again. After a third Full Restore, I have Mudweiser switch to Double Kick to take Incineroar to around half HP, letting Mudweiser survive a final Flare Blitz and get the last KO of the run with another Earthquake. That was a disappointing final battle of the run. Pokemon Moon is a weird game. The beginning of the game is unreasonably difficult to Nuzlocke, with the guaranteed Pikipek being weak to a forced Magnemite battle. Then once you get past the Alima battle, the difficulty falls off a cliff, with tons of encounters immediately before the first totem. After that, the biggest challenge of the game is really level cap. The level caps are really tight, which makes exploring the areas and finding encounters really stressful. I would say the Elite Four and Kukui are disappointing battles, but that's just my opinion. Of the games I've Nuzlocked so far, Moon is probably my least favorite. But hey, we successfully beat a Nuzlocke of Pokemon Moon, and entered our team to the Hall of Fame. Per the rules of the run, all the Pokemon on my team for the champion fight will be banned from future runs, including Pokemon that fainted during the Elite Four. The next game I will be playing is Pokemon Shield, which I'm weirdly looking forward to. I know the story is not good to say the least, but I've still put a ton of hours into my main file on the Switch, and I'm excited to run through it in a Nuzlocke. So keep an eye out for the video when I finish that run. I was hoping to get this video out sooner, but these later games have so much story that the runs just take longer. And wiping 2 runs early made it hard to justify making separate videos for the failed runs. Regardless, I've been Klinga Games, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll join me for Pokemon Shield.